Hey, what's up? It's Rick Dees in the morning. Right now, VinnDog.
Let's get ready to split the alleys and go hard in the yard for Jesus, baby.
Access granted.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's VinnDog in the house, and thank you for dropping by. It's going to be a doozy of a podcast. Don't let the government be your dad. You are self-governed.
Sir, yes, sir!
And now it's time. Going live from a 35,000-foot view, the Captain America for Jesus himself, VinnDoggRadio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on Monday, October 7th, 2024. This has been one of the hardest days ever, especially for our brothers and sisters of Israeli descent and of the Jewish people. It's really, really tough today for them. And it's really, really tough for us, too, as Christians who really do support Israel and the Jewish people. And it's really, really hard when you see your friends or your neighbors to being persecuted at a level like you've never seen before. It's getting crazy. Please do me a favor right now, share and like and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube. If you are on Rumble, please hit the follow switch and repost and share. If you're on X, formerly known as Twitter, please do hit the follow switch. And yes, we would appreciate it if you would just put this out in the troposphere. If you are on Getter, GETTR, please do the same thing. We would greatly appreciate and we'd be eternally grateful for all that you do. And I have a great friend, and we have become awesome friends. And I am glad that we are in the fold together and in the family under God. Yes, she is an American citizen, but she is also of Israeli descent. My friend Shiri is here with me. Hi, Shiri.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. And you and I were just having this incredible conversation on how people are just so super loud right now when it comes to coming against Israel. And it's really, really sad to see because it's really horrific, right?
Yeah, it's disheartening and devastating, really, for our people. It brings up so much of our traumas, even that it's not myself that experienced the Holocaust or the pogroms or Inquisition or any of those things. It brings up our generational trauma, Yeah. We thought we would never imagine we would live through such times to witness so much anti-Semitism, really. Even that a lot of people deny that it's anti-Semitism. They would tell you, oh, I don't hate Jews. I have Jewish friends. I just hate their government. And yet they're standing with a movement that is purely anti-Semitic, and there is no denial. Radical Islam is anti-Semitic. There is no denial there. And the Free Palestine movement is an anti-Semitic movement. And it's in disguise, though. It's very deceiving. It's in a disguise of humanitarian, social justice, indigenous people. All of that is a deception. It is none of that. It's a radical Islamic movement, and their goal is, if they could take over America, they would. Let's just say it that way.
Oh, and you and I both know this, and we have discussed this a couple of times already about how they want to take over America. I mean, they love America, but they want to rule it.
The entire Western civilization, as it is, the democracy and all of that. If they could. I recently visited a Jewish Iranian friend of mine that lives in Los Angeles, and her mother basically came from Iran during the Islamic Revolution. They ran away from there to the United States, and she told me she's terrified of what she's seeing right now in the U.S., that every step of it remind her of the time prior to the Islamic Revolution in Iran in the 70s, that it's pretty much identical. The universities, the protests, how all these people who are supposedly standing for liberation of, oppressed people.
Oh
um,
boy.
they don't understand what they're supporting. They really don't. And for people who experience the hands of radical Islam, like Iranian people and myself, Middle Eastern folks who aren't Muslim. Same as like Christian Arabs, anyone from the Middle East you would talk with that isn't radical Islamic person would agree that those movements, those are terrorists.
Hmm.
Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. Right now, Israel fighting all of them. And then these folks, these pro-Palestinian folks, they'll say Israel is the aggressor. They're fighting like 7 different fronts right now, and they're all terrorists. They're all Iran proxies.
Yeah, and people are coming against Israel just as God said they would because of their wanting of the possession of that territory. Because at the end of the day, you and I both know that these people don't want peace. They just want to wipe out the entire Jewish population.
Oh yeah, it's a religious war. It is not, like I told you in the last time we talked, that first they come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a religious war. This is not about land. They make it about land right
Mm-hmm.
now because the cause is is very supportive of their narrative.
Yeah.
The Palestinian cause helped them basically infiltrate into the Western world and society, just like that, like what they're doing, how many Native American people support this Free Palestine movement, believing everything they're being told, which is propaganda, that,
Mm-hmm.
the Palestinians are indigenous and that the Israelis are colonialist. And this is all complete makeup. It's a made up story.
And today
You know,
you guys have a vigil happening at 5 o'clock, right?
yeah, where I live, we
In
just have,
Grass Valley.
yeah, we have just we have pretty small community here, of Israelis, and we're just getting together, to share our grief and just mentioning, there's many here. I mean, all of us really, as you can tell on the entire Israel, it's a small country.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare what happened in October 7 to the size of people, we're 8 million people and 1,200 people were murdered in one day.
Mm-hmm.
That would compare to 50,000 Americans being murdered in one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
the difference is that among us Israelis, we're all we know each other. Not like everyone know each other, but I don't know a single Israeli that didn't know someone that either was murdered on October 7th or
Mm-hmm.
kidnapped or experienced it or was there
Yeah.
during the festival or in those kibbutz, which are small communities. I don't know a single Israeli that didn't know someone
Mm-hmm.
or know someone who knew someone who's
That's
murdered.
right. Mm-hmm.
So
And I believe too, that if you are in that area and you are a believer, if you're a Christian, you should be supporting the vigil that they're having this afternoon. All right, I'm calling it out like it is.
yeah,
So
thank
you should
you.
be there.
Yeah, and we do have support of some local Americans who are going to come in, as well as the media. We have some local newspaper that been very supportive of us,
Mm-hmm.
um, and luckily, I like I say, there is some sane people out there. That's how it shows to me, that there is some sanity out there, some people who gets it, and
Mm-hmm.
our the town near Grass Valley called Nevada City, just last week they passed the ceasefire resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very much against it for months. For 11 months we came to their city council and told them not to do it, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a small community here, it's only create more division. This
Yeah.
coalition of this Free Palestine movement that we have here, are relentless, just like anywhere else, and they just kept pressing the city to pass a resolution, as if that's gonna make any difference.
No.
Like as if Netanyahu or Sinwar, gonna, Nevada City passed a resolution, or as if a small town gonna make any difference. The only difference that it makes is that it makes us feel more um, excluded within the community. And for a small town to pass that resolution, just to show you, Nevada City is very much like a woke, lefty, liberal, mayor that simply submit to their pressure of bunch of people who follow social media, and everything they know is from social media, and they're completely uneducated and really hate Israel. And I pointed out to our city. I go to those city councils and I talk in our, when we have the public comments, and I tell them, look, you're cooperating with a entity that is completely anti-Semitic, and yet you're still cooperating with it as if this is democracy, as if this is it's just very disheartening. And they passed it, but they did listen to us a little bit, and decided to remove the word genocide from their resolution.
Wow.
So they didn't use the word genocide, and they didn't write anything about weapon embargo.
So it's
So
all phony baloney.
so the coalition, as they call themselves, this pro-Palestine coalition, wasn't very happy because they, how dare they remove the word genocide? That's because genocide isn't happening, and I keep saying it, and I'll say it loud and proud too, that genocide isn't happening. People are dying, yes. War is happening and is horrible, and innocent civilians dying in the war, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not a genocide. And anyone can Google the ratio of death in Gaza. If you look at it, it's the lowest ratio in history of urban wars. The comparison between civilian and combat and soldiers, the comparison of the death, the death toll is 1.1. And anyone can look it up. It's the information is all out there. Although none of those people who support Palestine would listen to us at this point. A year later, they refuse to talk to us. Everything we say is a Zionist propaganda. That's what they call it. Even that we stand with facts and truth, and they just believe a made up reality that's provided to them on social media and sourced in radical Islam deception, propaganda, anti-Israel propaganda. It's all over the place. At this point, I kind of stopped even fighting it. I just, like, there's no one to talk with, as far as the other side, there is not really people to educate. I would just post things on my social media that are educational, and whoever chooses to read it can read it, but I don't go dialogue with people who support this Free Palestine, or deny Hamas being terrorist. Calling that resistance is just the biggest, like, I don't know how to call it, baloney of the century. And the fact that people today, right now, are protesting in New York. They're protesting a year to the genocide on October 7th. It's like they steal everything from us. Even the day of our mourning, they can't even let us mourn this day. They take it to themselves and call it, the day we mourn the beginning of the genocide. And then they're attacking people in New York. I was just looking online how a bunch of them were arrested they're attacking pro-Israel protesters in New York City. There is arrest being made, and I saw one of the pro-Israel protesters bleeding in his face because they attacked him, stole his Israeli flag from his hands. He's wearing a shirt, bring them home now, and a bunch of people wearing keffiyeh attacking him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when we're wanting to remember this day. It's a day of mourning. It's gonna forever be a day of mourning for us.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that other side, they can't even acknowledge how horrific what happened there is. They call themselves humanitarian people. They're like, upset about what's happening to the Palestinian people, and yet no one show any kind of upsetness about what happened to the Israeli people. What happened there. And that day, a year ago, we didn't even have time to grieve. I swear, it was like 2 days. Within 2 days, people started, posting about Gaza. We didn't even, the IDF didn't even go into Gaza yet. It took about 11 days before they entered Gaza. And the war started. But people already started posting on social media pro-Palestine Gaza support, while we were still, no one could, we were still mourning. We barely started mourning. They just did what happened, and the world already started spinning it. The media started spinning it so quickly. And so, for us Israelis, especially, I feel like Israelis who live abroad, because the Israelis who live in Israel, they don't see what's going on in the world. Besides, they're hearing about it from us, but they don't really see the hatred, all these like universities and protests of,
Oh, you know what? I witness it a lot. I put a post in remembrance of October 7th last night, like I shared with you earlier.
Yeah.
And some guy just commented and said, "Expletive Israel, they are this and that." I'm like, whoa, bro. I'm like, if you feel that personal, why don't you go to Gaza? Because I don't call it Palestine, because it's really Gaza.
Right.
Why don't you go to Gaza? I'm thinking to myself, if you feel that personal about it, why don't you go to Gaza and you get into the fight and you see what happens? Because there's just a lot of keyboard talking from people over here.
Yeah, and I tell you what, they really don't know what they're talking about. And they wouldn't survive a day in Gaza.
Yeah. And especially, the people from the Alphabet Mafia saying, the Q word from Palestine for Palestine. I'm like, dude, you will be done in less than a second over there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, that's why we say so much that chicken's for KFC. That's really what it is. And, and you know what, it is really Gaza, and it is the West Bank. I don't call it the West Bank either,
I call it Judea and Samaria,
because that's what it is. And and you know what, the idea that being spread out there as if Jews belong to Europe and are colonialist and steal the land, it's just absurd. Because I go way back in history. If anyone tell you, well, before Israel it was Palestine, and it's so simple to get educated about it and know that you just need to Google, when was the word Palestine ever came, like first in the history? When was it even heard about first time ever?
And actually it was an insult.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the Roman Empire that took over Judea.
Yeah, the evil Roman Empire.
Yeah, they took 1 million Jews from Judea, Israel, to Rome. And this is actually how Jews arrived to Europe. So when people tell you, oh, Jews, they're from Europe. I mean, we were brought as slaves to Europe. That's how originally we got there. And once we've been free from slavery, we just spread it all over Europe and stayed there for many generations. But
Yeah.
we were never belong in Europe. I mean, I have ancestors that were in Europe, and suffered the Holocaust and all that. My grandmothers, and we were never belonged in Europe. We lived in Jewish communities, kind of isolated from everyone else. We were called the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
We were never just blended within the European society. Hence, also why when Hitler came and the Nazi regime took
Mm-hmm.
over, the Jewish people weren't, we weren't European. That's why they killed us.
Exactly. And
And
by the way, a lot of people need to really study their history too, because through the lineage of King Solomon, they're also Ethiopian Jews.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
Israel, like I said before, 65% of Israelis are people of color. So to all of those who try to say Israelis, should go back to Poland, what the other 65% of Israelis should do, where should they go? Because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't come from Poland. And even then, we were never originally Polish. That's where it's so offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, oh, I guess it's by kind of the flavor of the century, depends on who hating us. That's where we belong, because when we lived in Europe or in Yemen, Morocco, Iraq, all those places where Jewish people lived, we were told back then, 18th century, 17th century, people will tell us, go back to Palestine, go back home to Palestine. British Palestine, right? Back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would tell us, go back to where you came from, Palestine. And then we went back home. And now people say, oh, go back to where you came from, Europe, or, because no way Iraqi Jews or Yemenite Jews, they don't have where to go. I mean, they'll go to those countries, they'll be murdered.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even go there as Israelis. We're not welcome in those places. Beside Morocco, and I don't know Israelis who would travel to any Muslim country right now. So,
No.
and just this year, the last Jewish person in Yemen died. It was a really old man, the last Jew. And Yemen and Morocco and Iraq and all these places used to have a thriving Jewish society, thriving,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
millions lived there,
Mm.
but they were massacred. They were abused by the
Mm-hmm.
Muslim society there. Their synagogue will be burnt, and every now and then you can look up it's called the Farhud. The Farhud was like in Iraq, it was the Jewish massacre that happened in Iraq, where they just, same as October 7. That's kind of the how it goes. Same goes for 1929, where there was the Hebron massacre, and the Hebron massacre
Mm-hmm.
happened almost 20 years before the modern state of Israel existed. So when people tell you, oh, it didn't start October 7, it started 1948. No, it didn't start in 1948. It started way before that.
Yeah.
They blame the existence of modern Israel as some kind of occupation. But then I ask them, then how come Arabs on the land were killing us before modern state of Israel, if that's the reason? If you say the resistance is killing us because we occupying their stolen land, why did they kill us before that also?
Mm-hmm. And why is it that God had already said that he was going to bring Israelis back to the land?
Yeah.
And that happened. So it's a part of biblical prophecy. So a lot of these people need to get their record straight.
Yeah, and the last few months I kind of laid back for my activism and educational stuff, just because, you know what? It's going to take its course and
Mm-hmm.
Israel will win.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't see, I mean, there are countries who, or even this Kamala, that they say, oh, they're going to do everything they can to make Palestine the legal country, give them their country. And I think to myself, really, you all going to basically reward them for the violence and uh, murdering and and it, it's ongoing too. Just now, a few days ago, there was a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv. Nobody hear about it.
No, exactly. They won't talk about it.
These two men came from Hebron. They identify with Hamas, and they made their way somehow to Tel Aviv. They got on a train and they just started shooting people.
Yeah.
Killed eight Israelis. One was a mother holding her baby, and she fell on the baby, and that's how the baby was saved. Then they went off the train and started shooting the people in the street. The same day that Iran shoot all those 200 ballistic missiles, the same day, the same evening, those two terrorists were running around shooting people until civilians killed them, because some of the civilians are still military people and they'll walk with their weapon around town.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they go to do groceries, they still carry their rifles. And so luckily, that one of them was there just kind of walking around with his flip-flops, took down the terrorists that were murdering people just in the street.
Mm-hmm.
This one also, my oldest brother lived right there where it happened, and luckily he's okay. He takes that train 4 times a day.
Oh my goodness.
So for me, my heart dropped that day because I couldn't get a hold of him for a while, and none of us knew where they are and if they are okay. And then people cry that Judea and Samaria, where the Palestinian lives, where there is like Palestinians neighborhood and towns,
Mm-hmm.
people cry about the apartheid and how they're not free to come and go whenever they want. They don't understand that if there would not be blockades, people are gonna just come to the city and kill Israelis. That's what they do.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. I have this friend. He was a tank commander and a major for the IDF. And he basically tells it like it is and said, if Israel is so bad, then why is the IDF the only organization that warns people to get out of buildings that they're about to knock down?
Mm-hmm.
They send alerts early to people like, hey, get out of there if you don't want to be, if you don't want to get crumbled on. And so how is it that the IDF, they're villainized, and that's wrong?
Oh, it's so wrong. I can't even tell you how my life changed here living in California because of that, because I have so many people who used to be my friends or I would associate with in one way or another that straight up came to me to let me know, because my cousins are in the IDF and all my relatives, my friends, a lot of them are doing they serve after 18. The men serve until late age, until 45. They serve in the army every year, so they are all being called to war, and they're all either in Gaza or in Lebanon. And I have here people that would tell me that my family who is serving in the army, they're rapists.
And that's not true.
And I just like, these people are done in my life. I wouldn't even say hello to them if I see them in the street. because how dare you? You know,
That just
you
lets
never
you know.
been there, you never stepped your foot in the Middle East, and not to even mention you never experienced war in your life, and you dare to blame IDF that this is our family and friends are there risking their life. And you know, if they wanted to commit genocide on Gaza, it will, by the 10th of October last year, Gaza would be flattened. If the
Mhm.
IDF wanted, if Israel wanted to demolish Gaza, like people, you know, suggest that's happening, why are they just like doing it so, you know, slowly? They could really flatten Gaza if they wanted, but they don't want to. They
Mhm.
try to target, you know, and it's so hard to target because Hamas is under the ground in these $1 million worth of tunnels that they dug for, you know, 17 years, basically all over Gaza, that goes all the way to Egypt. And it's like an octopus. It's like a tentacles, you know,
Mhm.
it's like its arms is everywhere. And they're above ground and they're underground and they're inside schools and hospitals, and the UN backing them up,
Oh, the UN, I can't stand them.
backing them up completely,
Mhm.
you know. And then where is the Red Cross in all of this,
Oh
right? How
boy.
is it that 101 hostages are still held in Gaza and Red Cross never saw any of them? We don't know where they are, if they're alive. We don't know anything about these hostages.
Mhm.
And you know, IDF is able to target, obviously, you know, was easier to target Hezbollah because they're not in tunnels, you know, so they took down Nasrallah, thank God. And we all just anticipating for them to get Sinwar and, you know, finish Hamas for good. And unfortunately, we all want to see the hostages back home, but unfortunately, Israel, the government, they would not let Hamas survive this. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't. And no matter
Yeah.
what, they're not gonna leave any option for Hamas to grow again.
Yeah. And Israel cannot put down their weapons. They can't.
No, no, absolutely not.
Mhm.
And I said that, I say this all the time, you know, and it's, if Israel, you know, if Hamas drop its weapon, the Palestinian people can have freedom and life, decent life, perhaps. If
Mhm.
Israel drop its weapon, we're all dead.
Yeah. So you were saying earlier that you experience a lot of hatred from people that say that they were your friends
Yeah.
and neighbors.
Hmm.
And like, how in the heck does it turn so fast? It's so weird to me.
You know, propaganda works. And
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned to you before, there is a plan, and it's called, you know, uh, the 100-year plan for the West.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I looked that up too.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's written there, and this is all written there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the 100-year plan of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Palestinian cause. Uh, that's the plan for it, to use
Mm-hmm.
it in the West
Yep.
to brainwash people.
Mm-hmm.
And so those friends I used to have are simply brainwashed. But this is not just from this year. It started already dripping in already 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I say they're 25 years in with their 100-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is already 25 years in. And that's why it's so successful. That's why you see so many people not even confused. They're pretty convinced, and you can't even talk with them. They just, you know, convinced that the Palestinians are indigenous and Israel is evil, and we
Wow.
need. And then people have also the what we call white savior complex, especially here in the US, where
Yeah.
they want to play savior with all these people everywhere that are suffering, but especially people of color, although they're confused because Palestinians and Lebanese people are not, they're just like Israelis. It's very
Mm-hmm.
mixed. We're very mixed people. Some are people of color, some are green eyes and blonde, and it's all mixed over there. It's like a what you call it, you know, like
Mm-hmm. A melting pot.
a melting pot, exactly, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so what to say, they're brainwashed. They're, you know, this propaganda being fed to the Western minds for decades now.
Mm.
And so this Palestinian liberation movement is very well ingrained within the society of all the BLM, all the indigenous movements. And
Mhm.
I have Native American friends, and I tell them, these people, the intelligence behind this movement, there is intelligence there, and they're using Native American own trauma. They use their own trauma of like
Mhm.
Native Americans to get them on board, even
Yeah.
that it's deception, it's lie. And I tell them, this is not your people. Like, Palestinian people are not your people. This is not the same story of what happened to you here in America. But they
Mhm.
identify with it because that's what is being told to them, that it's
Mhm.
the same story. So they get on board and they go to those protests and they post on their social media and they get, you know, 100,000 likes. You
Yeah.
know, some of them have insane amount of followers, and there is no way. It's like a beast. I say it's demonic. It's a demonic
Oh yeah.
entity, and that's why I say this is a spiritual warfare. It is not about land.
Mhm.
It is evil versus good, and it's
Mhm.
pretty simple. You look at Israel, is all about life. Israel is about life. You know, the Jewish people is about life. And
Mhm.
the radical Islam is about death. Jihadism is about death. All they're sacrificing their own people, and they praise them when they dead. The mother,
Yeah.
they praise when their son killing themselves in a terrorist attack. They praise it.
Yeah.
They call them holy because they killed innocent people. They killed mothers and children, and they say, "Oh, thank God they did that. Now they're in heaven and they're holy." This is praising death. This is pure evil. It's there is no, people would tell you, "Oh, it's complicated." It's not complicated. It is not complicated. There are innocent people in Gaza too
Yeah.
that don't want war, and they don't want
That's right.
the Israelis to die, but they are hostages themselves. And that's what
Mhm.
people don't understand. And the Lebanese too. You can see a lot of celebrations in Lebanon
Oh,
after Nasrallah was taken. A lot of people
yeah.
celebrated his death and said thank you to Israel because they are also hostages of their own radical Islam regime.
Yeah. 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 Hezbollah's been giving Israel problems for decades.
And
Um,
is responsible of killing hundreds of Americans too.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, like American soldiers and you know, through history. It's
Mhm.
not, if you look at footages after September 11th, um, you know, they celebrated in Gaza. They were throwing candies
Oh yeah. Yeah.
for the
Giving
US
candy to the
being attacked.
kids and everything. Yeah.
They were celebrating it. So, and you know, and I guess the way I see it, the people who support Palestine, all these young folks with all their flags, and they're
Mhm.
actually anti-America.
Mhm.
And you know, I asked them when I get to dialogue with them, I said, "Do you hate your country? And do you hate freedom? Do you hate having freedom? Would you prefer to have Islamic regime controlling your country?" And this has all come from immense privilege. Like the way
Mhm.
these people protesting for terrorists comes from an immense privilege of not understanding what it cost to create freedom,
Yeah,
to,
it's
to,
all
to live
demonic,
in
like
a
you
free
said.
country.
Yeah, it's all
The
demonic,
fact
like you said.
the fact that they can even stand with flags of Hezbollah in protests, that's only because they live in this country.
Hmm.
If they lived under Islamic regime, they would need to shush their mouth or they're being killed. Like that's why look at Iran, people who
Hmm.
protest the Iranian regime, they
Hmm.
get either hurt or killed. And same in Gaza.
Hmm.
You won't hear the people from Gaza speak out against Hamas, because if they will, they'll be killed.
That's true. Check this out. I just got this video from the IDF. Check this out. Here we go.
7.
On October 7th.
On October 7th.
On October 7th,
I was shot 12 times in my body. In my 2 legs, in my hip, left hand and shoulder were all hit.
4 members of my family were murdered and 7 others were kidnapped.
We run into Be'eri. The first thing I see is 3 young kids killed at the gate.
Injured people coming to hospital. There were bodies, just bodies coming into the hospital. People lied dead near me.
it's a weird situation because it's your house. It's a place that you make a barbecue. It's a place that you host your friend. And in a second, it's a war zone.
We were 6 soldiers. We tried to fight back. They threw grenades to our room, got inside, and shot everyone.
My family got into the safe room. They were spread into 2 houses that day. In one house, everyone was murdered, and in the other, almost everyone was kidnapped, except for one that was also murdered.
64 people of Kfar Aza was murdered in this day, and 19 people kidnapped.
Alina, Aaron, Itamar, Shir, Danit, Ophir, Velior. I will always remember you.
Alina was killed on October 7th. She was my girlfriend.
After 3.5 intense days of fighting, with barely any sleep, food, or water, we were able to take control of Kibbutz Be'eri again.
Even a year later, we're still grieving, we're still mourning about the people we lost.
We'll never stop fighting to make sure something like this never happens again.
Well,
Yeah.
that was a hard video for me to watch earlier when I got it.
Yeah. I mean, it all come back now. It's been some time since I went and saw footages from that day because it's so heavily traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And those images would haunt us forever. And I've been consciously staying away from it because, it takes from my sleep and
Yeah.
my health too. Those images, the things that came up that day and for the entire year kept coming up, more footages would be found. And the way, I don't know if you ever seen those
Yes.
footages of
Yes. Makes
the
me sick.
the young girl that was taken from the festival into Gaza. And she was already dead, I think, at that time, but she's on that truck and all the men, all those terrorists kind of standing in the truck on her broken body. And then
Yeah.
civilians, this is also the problem in Gaza, that civilians are the one who comes around the truck and started spitting on the girl and celebrating it. It's hard to tell at this point who is innocent or not, how many people are actually not poisoned against Israel, because you see in those footages so many celebrating.
Mhm.
And the Hamas terrorists actually need to hold on their hostages and dead bodies that they brought in, because the people in the street just want to grab them and lynch them themselves.
Yeah. It's
And
awful.
some of these footages, from the festival, when you look, one of the IDF folks who came there after everyone were already dead, sadly. You have a body camera, and that footage, you really see, he's one of the first ones on the scene, and that would just haunt me forever. You see everyone's dead, all these young people just laying all over the ground, so many of them everywhere you look. It's just
it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, and it would haunt us forever, and it is very sad times for Israel, and we pray for our homeland all the time, every day, that like we say, truth will prevail, and those evil forces would have to go in some way or another. It's just like, can't keep existing this way. The only way to ever make a change is really de-radicalize these people. We can't keep living amongst, live bordering with monsters who just plan the next time they're gonna kill us.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to explain people. Imagine this was like Mexico, and you had terror tunnels, and soldiers, basically a terrorist army who's just constantly conspiring to get into your country and kill the children and everyone, civilians in their home. It's just brutal. What they did is just, we're still digesting it. We're still in disbelief. We say it's been October 7, 2023. We're kind of stuck there in that day. We can't believe it's been a year, because it feels like
yesterday.
We're still in shock from it.
It feels like yesterday when it came around. I'm like, wow, already?
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. And in my time, my generation, but even my parents' generation, that been through the Yom Kippur War and been through some pretty terrible wars, but they even never seen such evil. Such evil was only our grandparents seen. And the fact that we see it too in our lifetime is just unbelievable. You would think, it's like they also did it on purpose to trigger our generational trauma, to burn entire families in their home purposefully, while recording it, while torturing children in front of their parents before killing. They did things, unimaginable horror. Just how could anyone compare that to war? The IDF, what they're doing in Gaza, this is war. It's an urban war, but they don't go into homes and purposefully torture children in front of their mom while live streaming it. This is psychotic. This is
it's sick.
Yeah, it's sickness. And what they did there to children, and animals too, they just killed anything they see, anything that came on their way. They burned, they killed, and they raped, and then they stole too, whatever they could. They loaded trucks with goods from those homes of people.
They plundered.
They left babies crying. They killed the parents and left the babies to cry.
Wow.
As a way to trap the soldiers who would come to save them. They would put bombs around the babies, so when the soldiers come in to save them, they die too. In those communities, they did like booby traps. Killed the mother and took her 2 babies, and they put bunch of bombs under her body, so whenever someone finds her or move her, it explodes and they die too. And such degree of evil, those babies they took from their mother and then just killed the mother. It's like, and not just one case of that, they did. There was many families. It's just unfathomable. And I don't think I would ever like we say, we will never forget. And it's just all very sad times. And it's not even ended. They're still there. We still have 101 hostages that need to come back home. And 2 of them are children.
Yeah.
A baby and a child. We don't know if they're alive, but there is no proof that they're not alive.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up because you have to get to ritual. And I'm gonna leave everybody with this video that was put together this morning. Here we go.
כל עוד בלבב ונימה נפש יהודי הומייה לפתל מזרח קדימה עין לציון סופיה עוד לא
Shiri, thanks for coming on. Appreciate
it. Thank you so much. God bless you. And as we say, Am Yisrael Chai.
Yep.
The Israel people live. That's what it means. Am Yisrael Chai.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know a little bit thanks to some friends.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So yeah, everybody take care.